The Morrison County Board of Commissioners March 25th meeting will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning, Chair.
Agenda, any additions or deletions? Hearing none. Motion from the floor.
I'd make a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Casper,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Moran. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda. Is there anything listed in the consent agenda that you would like removed for further discussion? Hearing none, could I get a motion from the floor?
So moved.
Motion made Commissioner Wincher,
Second.
second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Casper?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Moran?
Aye.
Myself, Commissioner Lemire, will be aye. Motion carried. Next on the agenda, National Volunteer Week proclamation. Good morning. If you could please stand or come and sit before the microphones here and state your name for the record. Mary, you can come up too if you'd like. Get on camera. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having us here. I'm Purva Watton with the Little Falls Area Chamber and Tourism.
I'm Mary Bednick with the Little Falls Chamber Area and Tourism.
Hi. So thank you so much for your time today. We are here to see if you can please consider signing a proclamation for National Volunteer Week. With April marking the month of National Volunteer Month, we're hoping that you can proclaim week of April 21 to 25 as National Volunteer Week in Morrison County. And the reason for us doing that is because we would like to launch a wonderful, wonderful effort that we've been trying to do since the last 2 years. It's called Morrison County Volunteer Network. For the last 2 years, we've been working on it. But with our area especially, there's a lot of organizations that function with volunteers, a lot of nonprofit groups, a lot of healthcare places. They really need volunteers. They're like very essential to the economic fabric, especially of our area. 14% of the chamber membership itself is nonprofit, so I definitely understand the need when it comes to getting volunteers and for anything related to like event efforts all the way to any other operating things that they might even need sometimes. This works solely on volunteers. The Arts and Crafts Fair gets volunteers anywhere between around 80 to 100, and it's just amazing to see so many people come together to make things happen for the betterment of our community. So it's just our little effort in, encouraging volunteerism in our community.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We're excited to support your National Volunteer Week proclamation. So if you would like to read your proclamation for the audience watching and the audience here today, that'd be great.
Absolutely, thank you. National Volunteer Week, April 21 to 25, 2025. Whereas volunteers are the backbone of our communities, generously dedicating their time, skills, and passion to making a positive impact. And whereas in Morrison County, a considerable number of organizations rely on volunteers to fulfill their missions, providing essential services in areas such as education, creativity, healthcare, food security, youth development, senior assistance, animal welfare, and community enrichment. And whereas volunteerism strengthens the social fabric of our county by fostering connections, promoting civic engagement, and addressing critical community needs that might otherwise go unmet. And whereas introducing volunteer opportunities to younger generation is vital to instilling a lifelong commitment to service, teaching invaluable skills, and ensuring that the tradition of giving back continues for years to come. And whereas National Volunteer Week serves as an opportunity to celebrate and encourage individuals of all ages to engage in volunteerism, recognizing that their contributions make a lasting difference in the lives of many. Would you? Okay. And now therefore be it resolved that Morrison County and the Board of Commissioners proclaim the week of April 21 to 25, 2025 to be National Volunteer Week in Morrison County and encourage all residents to take time to express their appreciation for volunteers, seek out ways to contribute their time and talents, and support the many organizations that rely on volunteerism to thrive.
Great job. Gentlemen, can I get a motion from the floor?
Get a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Casper, second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussions? Commissioner Blaine?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think it's entirely fitting that we as a county support this. We encourage and give opportunities for our employees and members of the county family to volunteer. We also understand the importance of the volunteers that provide services and address needs in our county, and we house a number of organizations within our organization that rely on these volunteers and the public to step forward and give of themselves and their time. I think this is entirely fitting, and I support this tremendously.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Winter?
Yeah, again, I bring this up every time we have a proclamation to better serve the county. Again, it's very important what volunteers do. It's just not for the city of Little Falls, it's all throughout. But my question always is, how does one contact somebody if they want to volunteer? Maybe they get a hold of you, or do you have a web address, a phone number? That's a question to you, please.
Yes, sir. So that was the goal for us. We wanted to create a one-stop shop for all of the Morrison County. So now people will have a web address that they can just go to. They can just go to the chamber website at www.littlefallsmnchamber.com and just scroll on to where it says Morrison County Volunteer Network, and a lot of the opportunities are going to be listed underneath that link. Little Falls Community Services is also launching Flyers Service Corps, which basically it's another thing that they're doing where kids to earn varsity letter, they have to volunteer as well, any of the locations, so they'll be able to see all of those opportunities as well in there.
Thank you for that, and for TV Land, now they can kind of figure out, maybe you'll get a lot of volunteers coming up this next week or month. So
Awesome,
thank you
thank
again.
you. Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen? I just want to say thank you for being here today, Mary and Purva. And Purva, it's always nice to see your smile and your energetic way about you. And that's a great idea, having a one-stop shop on volunteerism and shining a light on the great work that they do, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. How would you like a picture?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up around this way here. Gonna go right in the center.
Thank you.
Can you come over a little bit more?
Let me take those from you. Hold that, that's not, somebody will get, hold that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Got it.
Awesome.
Trade it back.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again. Nice to see you, Mary. It's been a while.
Very good. Nice to meet you.
Always got to see you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was gonna ask you.
Didn't get the phone here.
Bright star. Next on the agenda, we have Great River Regional Library. Good morning. Good morning, and if we could have you state your name for the record.
Good morning. I'm Karen Punsack, the Executive Director for Great River Regional Library.
Terry Deal Hansen. I'm the Library Services Coordinator at the Royalton Branch.
I'm Jade Lauber. I am the Library Services Coordinator for the Little Falls and Swanville branches.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again. So we come twice a year to our counties to talk about library services because Great River Regional Library is a 6-county partnership, and Morrison County is one of our strong partners within that agreement. You can see on that first slide our mission, vision, and theory of change around library services across the 6-county area. It is a one library system, even though we have 32 buildings across the entire 6-county region. Patrons experience the same level of service regardless of whether you're going to Swanville, Little Falls, or the St. Cloud Public Library. So we're really proud of what we're able to deliver as a 6-county system. If you go to the next slide, you can kind of see an overview of some of the high points as a region of what we accomplished last year. We have 98,000, almost 99,000 borrowers as of the first of the year. We're just about ready to hit that 100,000 mark again. It's been a slow climb after the pandemic, but we will eventually get there. In recognition of Volunteer Week, it's not on this slide, but we had over 10,000 hours of volunteer time across the region with over 480 volunteers. And in contrast, we have about 220 employees, so it's quite a large volunteer base. We are really fortunate to have so many people interested in helping with library services. We're fortunate here in Morrison County as well to have 5 cities that help us maintain levels of service in the county. So Little Falls, Royalton, Swanville, Pierce, and who am I forgetting? Upsala. Oh my gosh. Wanda would never forgive me. She's a retired coordinator there. Where our faces are in Morrison County, the cities provide the buildings. Morrison County provides contributions to the system, but Great River funds the books, the computers, and the people that make our libraries across the whole county. If you go to the next slide, you can kind of see how usage broke down across the different services in Morrison County specifically. As a regional total, we had over 2 million physical items circulated with almost 100,000 borrowers, 19,706 new borrowers regionally last year. The digital library has almost exceeded the circulation of the St. Cloud Public Library, not quite, probably this year. So digital library services are very heavily used across the entire region. That borrower count that you see is separate, like it's counted within the 96,000 or the 98,000 above it. So 34,000 people use the digital library. Some of them also use physical services. Little Falls is our largest location here in this community. It is also one of our larger buildings. It is a 4-story Carnegie building if you haven't been in it, so it's quite a fantastic facility. It's got its own character. And, all of the libraries get very well used when you consider the size of some of these communities and look at the total borrowers for each library. It's pretty evident that people from outside those city limits are using those locations. If you go to the next slide, you can see some of the regional highlights last year. We broke a record with summer reading program participation. We had over 13,000 kids participate in summer reading program. Call it Summer Reading Challenge now. I'm having a hard time changing. Winter reading program is something we offer for kids and teens and adults. We had high participation there. We also formed a new youth advisory council. This is the second year of the Youth Advisory Council. We have participation from students from across the entire 6-county area. So we have 12 members of that council. There's Riley from Little Falls, and then also Lydia from Royalton, who represent the Morrison County area. What we have learned from our young people is that they want to use the books in the library, physical books, and one of their highest priorities is finding nice books on the shelf that they actually want to read and having a nice place to read that makes them feel welcome. So we're talking a lot about what does that mean when a teen comes to the library and just wants to hang out with their friends. Is there a place for them to sit? Is there a place that makes them feel like this is a teen space and they're not encroaching on the kids' space? And how do you do that in a library of 800 square feet in Swanville? So lots of challenges ahead, but they have been really helpful in helping us recognize that while digital is a growing footprint for the library, our youth still want the library, as we think of it, the place for books and the place for quiet and a place for reading. So we're really excited about the possibilities that will bring for the region. And then Terry and Jade will share some of the highlights specifically happening in their locations.
Sure. Sure.
You can go to the next slide. Yep.
So in Royalton, some of the highlights, some of our goals that we've been focusing on are literacy. We have, in Minnesota, less than 50% of our students are reading at grade level. As of last year, it's a decade low. So it's been a steady decline since 2016. So as a library, we're trying to bridge that gap and do what we can to promote literacy with our kids. One of those programs you'll see on the screen is 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. That's Dawson, one of our little kiddos who achieved reading 1,000 books before he went to kindergarten. It's a program that we've been offering for about 6 years in Royalton. It's simply encouraging caregivers to read with their children. For every book that they read, they indicate it on here. Kids come in every month, or once they achieve that, and get to, yeah, absolutely.
Sure, absolutely.
Get a sticker and get a small prize, and it's just a fun way to encourage their parents to continue that regular routine reading. We also have our therapy dog, River, who's come to the library. This is River. He's our short-haired collie, sweet dog that kids can read a book to. Kids love reading to River. You can see that, I believe this picture is on, oh no, it's not. Maybe should we share this one too? So River comes monthly, and for kids who are struggling to just read out loud, it's a very non-threatening, easy way for them to be comfortable and have a sweet dog to read to. And Terry, River's handler, is wonderful with kids and just has been a really fun addition to our program there. We've also been focusing on library awareness, just trying to, with outreach, talk to families about the fact that we have a library in Royalton and what we have to offer there. We do monthly preschool visits from library staff. We've been collaborating with the ECFE and the after-school programs and bringing the library to them, and then they also come to the library for programs. We had a really cool skateboard art program, I believe that's on your screen, that we had 20 kids that were able to participate in this program and design their own skateboard, and Mark Rivard just really encourages that creativity and getting kids doing something really fun and unique. We also, as I think in the last screen for our locally grown program, we were able to purchase 37 of these new Wonder Books, which are physical books with an audio component. So for those kids who are struggling to read, it's a nice way for them to be able to read their chapter books and just have it read along with them. We also have storybooks, children's books, so for those busy families, it encourages independence of young children to, before they can actually read, to get that, the process of reading and get to have some independence in being able to do that. That's about it. That's what we've been up to in Royalton.
All right, so I won't repeat a lot of what Terry said because we also in Little Falls do the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten and many of those other initiatives as well. So those are great programs regionally. I will say that Little Falls and Swanville have been in a little bit of a transition. Just I'm a new LSC, so I've only been in the role for about 9 months. But we have some really fun things planned coming up. We've got a haiku workshop coming up during National Poetry Month, and a few exhibits coming in from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. So some sort of hands-on exhibits where people can learn how to, for example, save your food. So it gives tips on, just like storing food and creating less waste. So those are things that are coming in. Recently, we celebrated in Little Falls the 120th anniversary of the Carnegie Library. We had sort of a self-directed history tour for the whole month of September, and then with an official birthday party hosted by our Friends of the Library, with over 70 people coming through the library in that one day to just look at the history, see pictures of the previous librarians. It was really fun, community event. People, lots of people were coming in, and I hear things like, that was my aunt, or that was my mom, or something with all of the pictures that we had everywhere. So that was really fun, just highlighting sort of the icon of this community. We are getting ready to do our Locally Growing campaign, which is our local fundraiser, and for Little Falls, we are looking to get the Play to Learn toys, so there's educational toys that can be used in the library or checked out as a kit to take home, and also educational sort of STEM items for the Swanville Library, so we'll see how that goes. And then the other thing that I would say is a really great opportunity, like just a thing that's happening all the time in Little Falls, is Tech Time. We have a really successful Tech Time every month, twice a month. We have a librarian from St. Cloud come and offer one-on-one help with people's technology. We're always full. There are always people calling to see if they can get in, and so we do a lot of across-the-desk help as well, and have a lot of happy patrons who leave with new ebooks on their tablet that they got for Christmas or something that they didn't know how to use previously. So that's probably one of the best things that happens on a daily basis, I think. We always have people coming in for tech help, so anything else?
Well, thank you. We want to thank you for your support of the library. Commissioner Casper has been on our board now for a couple of years, and Commissioner Wincher was on for many years before that. We have really strong support and representation on that library board, and it helps us see what the region needs, having that local voice at the decision-making table when we start talking about our strategic plan and what services we should be offering, not in just one community, but across the entire region. So thank you for your support of the library, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, Commissioner Winter?
Yeah, again, I heard nothing but good things about our Commissioner Casper serving on the board, representing the county, so I want to thank you for that. You're doing a great job. Couple of questions. One, most people don't understand the library system, but Sartell, you never mentioned Sartell very much about that locker system. How's that doing?
Sartell is an interesting collaboration with the city of Sartell. It's been in existence since 2017, I think now. The city of Sartell actually provides separate funding. So it's one of the few places where we receive direct city funding for services. And there's a locker system in their community center. So the community center is actually open more than most libraries would be, because they've got a track and pickleball courts and lots of other things. The locker exists in a space that they've used as a volunteer library, so it's donated materials, there's no staffing there, there's just a lot of books. And the locker is connected to our system, so people can place a hold to pick up an item from Great River at the locker, they scan their library card, the locker pops open and checks it out to them. So we deliver there 2 days a week and pick up the book drop 4 days a week, and they pay us for those services.
So it's still doing very well.
Very well, yep. It took a little hit during the pandemic because there was some limits to the community center. When I pulled the stats last week, 10% of the borrowers are from Benton County, which was kind of interesting. And most of the people using it are from Sartell. And most of them are in a different demographic than some of our other libraries. So it's people who are using the community center for the walking track, and the pickleball court's a little bit older. There's some younger people using it, but I would say the primary audience is that adult group.
And one more question, if I may, Mr.
Absolutely.
Chair. And then, when I was serving on a board, and I'm sure Commissioner Casper and I ever discussed it, you had one or two libraries that needed some updates. Again, because we have to, I don't know what our dollar amount is, it's in close to 500,000 a year that we give to the library system, and this affects our, our budget over the years. So how is that doing? And then we had a couple libraries, maybe I'm gonna take too much time here, that are a couple cities that want a library. So could you give a little information on that? And again, I know Terry very well. You guys do a great job, so I thank you for serving in the library, but to go back to my questions, if you could answer them, please.
Sure. So there's 32 cities. The agreement between Great River and 31 of the cities is you provide the building, we'll provide the stuff that makes the library go. And so that's the only financial contribution for 31 cities. Howard Lake was one that the building was just, it had some mold issues. It was a weirdly constructed building that was actually, the library was in the underground part of the building, and a lot of water intrusion. We put a lot of pressure on the city of Howard Lake to step up, and Kimball. I mean, that was a similar situation where the building was over 100 years old. It wasn't handicap accessible. We need to do something if we're going to put this level of service to this community, because there's other places that want it. So Howard Lake opened a brand new building last fall. It is the first net zero library, I think, in the country, and for sure one of the few net zero libraries in the state. So they used multiple grant sources to create a whole new building, and that means it generates all of the power it needs to on site itself, and it's right next to a splash pad. So we've got small communities willing to contribute substantial dollars in maintaining those libraries. And so we continue to update our plan. We have a library development plan. That plan tells us, okay, what facilities need to be looked at next, because it's a constantly moving target. Buildings need to be maintained, and sometimes cities forget their responsibility to Great River because it's easy to forget the thing that you don't have to pay for a whole lot. I know we've had some problems with a few with water in the last year, like Upsala had some weird stuff happening between the SciTech building and the building next to it in a really tiny alley. That's one that the library is not owned by the city. It's a leased space. So we continue to have those conversations. In terms of libraries that people have come to the table, we've heard a lot from, over the last 10 years, a lot from the city of Zimmerman, some from the city of St. Joseph, some from what is now the city of Otsego, about the desire for library services. And, perspective, Todd County has about 25,000 people, and Otsego has about 25,000 people. So how do you balance that across a 6-county region? And then you've got the weirdness of Otsego not even having a post office. Like how communities had libraries historically is not how we can continue to add libraries to the system, because it is a 6-county agreement, and that means everything gets divided within that formula. So if we add a library, the cost of that operation is divided by 6. The formula is set up so that it's borrowers, net tax capacity, and population, but that means how each county pays changes from year to year as well. It's a long, yeah, that was a long answer, but.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Winter. Commissioner Casper?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I'd just like to say to you, gals, in this age of social media, you have really had to be light on your feet. And I commend you, because it just seems like technology just continues to branch out. And for you to seek those avenues, you're doing a great job, and it's very encouraging. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
very
welcome.
much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere the annual book sale coming up, is that,
Yes, first week in April, I believe.
okay, yeah?
Yeah.
And do you take donations?
We do.
Good used books?
We do, good condition, so we wouldn't want anything that you wouldn't really want to pick up. And we generally don't take any textbooks or sort of old media like VHS tapes. We do get them sometimes, but we try not to accept those. But yes, we'll take them anytime the library is open.
Great.
Great. Anything else, gentlemen? Well, thank you so much for the update. It's always encouraging to see the card holders that you have, and it's good to hear that children want a physical book to read too.
Yeah.
That surprised me when you said that.
Yeah, it surprised us too.
Let me know when you need another dog.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Great update. Health and Human Services. How do you do it?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning. I'll start off with introduction. Nathan Bertram, Health and Human Services Director.
And I'm Aaron Stein. I'm the Human Services Supervisor.
Jeff Bowman, Adult Services Supervisor.
And this morning, we have our min choices and waiver report for you. Historically speaking, these two reports have been separate. Over the course of the last year, we've kind of made the decision that you can't really have one of these services without the other, and so it probably just makes more sense to put them together. And so with that, I will turn it over to Aaron and Jeff.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Morning. So I'm going to start with the min choice portion of this report. So a quick overview of what is a min choices assessment. It's a person-centered comprehensive assessment to help people with long-term or chronic needs to make care decisions and to select support options. So the whole goal would be to remain in the community with supports coming in. So assessments would assess a person's needs above and beyond what medical assistance state plan services provide, except for PCA and Rule 185, which is a developmental disabilities case management. And the overall thing is a min choice assessment is required for anybody who's going to access waivered services. So everybody needs a min choice assessment. So notable things in the last year that happened is the assessment tool, the min choice assessment tool was updated. So we call it the version 2.0. So that was a longer rollout that happened in 2024. And now, as of today, actually it's been for a few months now, all county staff are solely using this updated tool. And I'm proud of our staff. Our staff were consistently engaged in each step of the process. When you roll, I think, something out at this level, it can give a little bit of anxiety to people. People who have been using the tool had been used to it a certain way, and this was a pretty big upgrade. But our staff, your staff at Morrison County, were engaged at every step of the way. They really weren't fighting it, or anything like that. So I was proud of that. Some highlights of the new assessment include a better functionality for the assessor that improves the interview experience for the resident. It's a much more seamless transition of information from year to year. We do these assessments every year. And then it is easier to send the document to other counties when it's needed. So those are pretty big, impactful highlights of what happened in 2.0. Next slide. So the current staff using min choices, on average, we completed 593 assessments a year. So our staff here, we have 4 full-time assessors, and they completed on average 13 assessments per month in 2024. We also have 2 part-time intermittent assessors. And we started doing this in February of 24, and this has been extremely helpful to regulate the monthly assessment work. Cases remain with the assessors until all waiver eligibility is determined, specific program is chosen by the individual or the family, and then it is assigned to a case manager in Jeff's unit. The other notable piece is all over 65, that's kind of what we call it, the elderly population, all over 65 population. Our case managers, there's 5 of them, and they work with this min choice assessment as well. Next slide. So this one is a graph, an overview of how many assessments per month going back to, mid-2023 that we do. So it really does when I look at this, I kind of see that 50 mark. It kind of hovers around there. Some months are above 50, some months are below 50, and that's kind of the point of this slide. Next assessment, the impact of the intermittent part-time pool. Prior to initiating our intermittent part-time pool, assessors were averaging 15 to 16 assessments per month. DHS guidelines are 10 to 12 per month. And so just to note, a new assessment takes about 10 hours. So when you talk about 15 to 16 assessments per month prior to implementing the part-time pool, that was putting a lot of stress on our full-time staff. It makes it harder for them to take time off. If they get sick, then they start to worry about, it really does boil down to what you miss in a day, how are you gonna make that up? And that, that's something that we address through the intermittent part-time pool, which has been very, very helpful. Some of the things that, the big picture, it will help with staff retention. I think that's so far borne out. I almost hate to say it, but we have now an experienced group of assessors that have been around for a while, which is very good. That's kind of my goal, is to find good people and then retain them. The training for a min-choice assessment is long, and it takes quite a while for a social worker to get proficient with it. And the use of the intermittent part-time pool is anticipated to address, kind of those variable caseload numbers that I talked about in the previous slide. Next slide. So the waiver programs are managed by Health and Human Services. So the first part of this slide, the over 65 population, I briefly talked about. Those waivers would be alternative care, elderly waiver, and essential community supports. Those are handled with our care coordination team. And then I'm going to hand it off to Jeff to talk about the disability waivers.
Yes, good morning. The disability waivers are, in order to be eligible, like Aaron mentioned, you have to have a min-choices assessment. There are other additional requirements that are necessary. The person needs to be certified disabled either through Social Security or the state medical review team. They have to have eligibility for long-term care medical assistance, which is a higher level of medical assistance. They also need to meet nursing facility level of care, as well as needs that go above and beyond estate plan services, medical assistance. Now, there are 4 disability waivers. The community alternative care, in essence, that person is chronically ill, medically fragile. They are replicating being in a hospital to being in a person's home, having nursing readily available. We have only a handful of these cases for Morrison County. The CADI waiver, or Community Access for Disability Inclusion, sorry, speaking acronyms a lot, it's just part of our jargon that we typically default to. That's one of our common waivers. Again, that is for individuals. They could have mental health needs, they could have physical health needs. It helps them to live in the community where they want to live. Brain injury, a person has to have a diagnosed brain injury that happened after the time of their birth. And developmental disability, a person has to be meeting the developmental disability criteria to access those waivers. Now, one of the big changes that's happened over the past couple of years is the state has really allowed services that are accessible across all the waivers. Before, there were limitations. If you were on the CADI waiver, you couldn't access some services that were on the DD, and vice versa. So those lines have been removed, and that has been one of the great movements that's happened across the years. As you can see on this slide, this represents our disability waiver participants. Now, the state breaks it down to CAC, CADI, BI as one pool, and our DD individuals as another pool. Our numbers continue to increase for our CAC, CADI, and BI participants over the past several years. Accessibility, less informal supports, all the struggles that we've heard about. Post-COVID, this is reflecting in the number of individuals that are coming across. And our DD waiver recipients, they've been more stable. They've come and go, but they're more long-term than our CAC, CADI, and BI individuals. On the next slide, you see this is what our annual waiver budgets are. Again, state breaks it down to CAC, CADI, BI, and DD. Prior to COVID, we were utilizing up to about 95% of our authorized budget for services for Morrison County recipients. Within the past several years, we've been at about 30%. Now, these funds are not held in our bank account somewheres. We act as a pass-through. This allows providers to bill for services that they are providing for our recipients. We enter in these service agreements into one of our systems that allow the providers to bill. One of the big changes within the past 10, 12 years has been the implementation of the disability waiver rate system. What that has done is helped to standardize rates across the state. Prior to that, there were some services, rates were based primarily on your negotiation skills. And so the feds came in and said, Minnesota, you need to get back to, having some consistent standard across the state. And it's really based on the individual's needs and the amount of care that that service provider is actually providing to that participant. Next slide. Here is a graph about the case management revenue. So when our case managers are working with our persons, whether they're talking to providers, meeting with the participant, coordinating, they are able to bill waiver for those services. This is how we're able to continue with our staff. Now, as you can see, over the past several years, the revenue continues to increase. Again, that's related directly to a previous slide. Our numbers continue to increase for waiver participants, as well as the increase in complexity for the individuals that we're working with. And last slide here, we have some final thoughts. Again, assessments, are required for individuals. There's, as Aaron mentioned, one of the big changes for us was going to version 2. It was originally scheduled to launch back in 21, I think, and it didn't fully launch until last summer. There were lots of bugs trying to get ironed out. It's been a long process. Whenever there are changes that the state wants to implement, we're using Medicaid dollars. So that comes from the federal government. So requires CMS to authorize what changes we're wanting to implement. And as I mentioned, the accessibility of services has greatly increased across all the different waiver programs. That has to do with the Waiver Reimagine. It's been a process that's been in place for a couple years, and they're going from 4 waivers eventually to 2, and we were just informed within the past couple months that's being kicked down the road even further to become finalized. And Nathan, I know you want to.
I'll just touch on the legislative aspects of this a little bit. I think both areas, Min Choices and the waivers, both have current legislative bills that are kind of pending to see what happens this session. One thing Jeff touched on is the CMS, so like the Min Choices assessment, one thing that's been discussed for the last couple years is, do we need to do an annual reassessment every year? Can we do it as conditions change, which maybe would make it every other year, every 3 years to help kind of slow down the growth? Because essentially, if you appear eligible and you need a Min Choices assessment, we're obligated to provide one at the county level. And so that takes CMS approval, but first it takes legislative approval, and so it ends up being a two-step process. And so if legislatively they approve that, then we go through CMS, and we likely won't see a change in that area for 2 years down the road. So it's really kind of intertwined, federal, state, and local government here, how this all comes together, which makes it a little more complicated, I think. And with that, I think I would note that probably after this session, probably July-ish, when we have kind of a good summary of everything, I'd like to come back and touch on some of those and just see where things shook out essentially, so. And with that, I would open it up to you all for questions.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moran?
If you could elaborate a little more on the disability waiver participants there from 2017 to 2024, they've over doubled. What kind of cases are involved with those?
A lot of them have to do with, one of the reasons they increased, a lot of the informal supports that individuals were able to utilize to get their needs met, to continue living, family, church, volunteers, and the like. Those services are not available as readily as they were previously. One of the other changes has been the accessibility for medical assistance for individuals. That's not my program. I don't know all those rules. I rely on our financial team to really explain those, but I believe they have changed some of the procedures, making it accessibility for medical assistance much more readily available. The disability waivers support anybody from almost birth to up to 65. We've had a lot of increase of services for our kids, for our minors under 18. There are a lack of services for adults. There really are a lack of services for our children. And this helps to prevent out-of-home placement, keep families intact, help keep individuals on a more positive trajectory.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Nate.
And just to add to that, I think, you look at that graph on the left, that's kind of looks like a 45-degree angle heading up, and it concerns me as well. I think, you look at any population, we would see that plateau off at some point. We just don't have that magic wand to know exactly if it's gonna plateau off at 245, 250, 300, and at some point, though, it should resemble the DD waiver, which will kind of help us reevaluate caseload size and where we may need to be at. Chair Lemire heard me at the Public Health Advisory this last week talk a little bit about this area, and the old way of managing waivers, excuse me. You had X amount of slots per year that you could kind of plug people into, and right, wrong, then some people were kind of left without any service, but it did manage the budget a little bit differently in the case volume. With changes they've made at the state level now is essentially if you're certified disabled and you're eligible for the waiver, there's no amount of slots you have per year, and so essentially we have to open a waiver case then to fund what services you need to be able to remain in the community.
I have a question for you. On the CAC, CADI, and BI waivers, what are the age demographics of these individuals? Are they wide?
Yes, absolutely. For our brain injury, we only have, don't have the numbers, I should have put them together. I want to say we have 3 brain injury waiver participants, and those are all adults. We have 3 CAC individuals right now. They're all adults as well. Our CADI individuals, if I had to guesstimate, probably be about 20% under 18.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Casper?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Question to Nate. Nate, you mentioned legislatively, were you talking at the Minnesota level? And I'm curious, what do you see happen at the federal level? Is it sweeping changes coming forward, or any hint?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I wish I could hypothesize on that. I just honestly don't really know right now how that's gonna kind of all shake out, and partially because there's 2 moving parts. There's the state level and the federal level. Maybe if we were just looking at one kind of shifting, I could make some projections, but I think we gotta wait and see a little bit, and I'm thinking I'll have a better answer for you maybe in July after the state session is done.
Sure, that makes sense. Thank you, Nate.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Winter?
again, just help me out here. We put the 2 part-time on last year, correct? But was that grant-driven, or was that something it was not? So if you'd explain that to me, please?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Yes.
Winter. Yes, so we added those in 2024. I don't know, Matt, if you want to jump to that graph. I think really when I look at that and what those part-time staff are able to do for us is it really kind of helps us even out those valleys. You know, some months we don't really need them, and other months we would be drowning and no one would be able to take PTO and we'd all be doing overtime. And so that's the purpose of those staff, and they're funded really, you know, if you look at our budget line, usually I think this last year we were 1 or just under 2% under our labor line as far as HHS as a whole, and so that 1% extra is really kind of what funds these two to be able to do that work to offset the teams and the need.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and to follow up with Commissioner Winter and Nate, you know, this is a flex capacity for us. The part-time intermittent, they are not necessarily they are not positions within the county. They are reviewed quarterly by Nate and I to determine if the need is still there. Our policy allows for that intermittent type work to fill a gap, and it prevents us from growing full-time staff at this time. It allows us to respond to those peaks and then not have somebody on during the valleys. So it helps to kind of level that out, if you will.
Anything else, gentlemen? Very good. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Good work you do.
Keep up the good work, you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Next on the agenda, Public Works Report. Morning, Tony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Board.
Morning, Tony.
Tony Hennon, Morrison County Public Works Director. I have one item for you this morning. We're going to review our maintenance striping contract. This was let on March 13th. It's part of our maintenance practices. We try to stripe roughly 1/3 of the county every year. So this year we're up on the east side of the county. You can see kind of the lines that we have highlighted there. What we focus on is that third of the county, and then any areas where we have higher traffic and maybe the paint started to fade, we'll include those in there. So you see a little bit of work right there in Little Falls. Go to the next page. We had 3 bidders on this project. Bids were very competitive, which was nice, and also underneath our engineer's estimate, which was also nice.
Oh.
Those 3 bidders, we had Camco, a smaller company out of Dassel, Minnesota, Sir Lines a Lot out of the Metro. That's a company that's acquired a lot of different striping contractors and has really grown over the years. And then we had a striping contractor out of Iowa. This is Vogel Traffic Services, so we're really happy to see them bid and make competitive bids across the board. This project, we had an engineer's estimate of just north of $200,000 at $207,000. Our low bidder, Camco, came in at $184,658.51. The bids varied from there. It was tight bidding. Your second bidder, Sir Lines Lot, was at $187,000, and then Vogel Traffic Services at north of $200,000 at $205,000. Any questions on the abstract at all?
Gentlemen,
If I may,
Mr.
Mr.
Winter.
Chair, driving around the county, townships, do we reach out to the townships, because some of their roads, they're striping, you barely can see them, or do we not even let them try to help bid with that? Is that something that's possible?
We do not reach out to the townships with our striping contracts. The main thing is we have 30 different townships inside Morrison County. To include them inside some of our contracts would be quite an endeavor. They also have different rules for their roads, so some of those lower traffic roads don't require the amount of striping that we provide. Each of them would be welcome to reach out and talk to us a bit if maybe they wanted something included. We do that with some of our smaller paving stuff. Sometimes we'll partner with townships, but in this scenario, this is just a maintenance contract, so we're really focusing on our infrastructure.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Excellent. So with this, I would recommend the award of our 2025 striping contract, contract number 2501, to Camco Inc. in the amount of $184,658.51.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Wincher,
I can second that.
second by Commissioner Casper. Discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call. Commissioner Casper?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Moran?
Aye.
Myself, Commissioner Lemire, is an aye. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Motion carried.
That's all I have for you, Mr. Chair, unless there's any other topics.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tony. Have a great day.
Tony, can I give this to you?
Administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple items before I request us to move into closed session. Received a couple mailings this week, and the first is from the Minnesota Board of Peace Officer Standards and Training, otherwise referred to as POST. And I'll just read the letter in its entirety. Dear Matt LeBlanc, the Minnesota Board of Peace Officer Standards and Training's POST Board is the occupational regulatory agency charged with the vital responsibility of maintaining selection, education, and licensing standards for over 400 Minnesota law enforcement agencies that employ over 10,500 peace officers across our state. While the Post Board performs many functions, a significant portion of its responsibility is dedicated to conducting compliance reviews of Minnesota law enforcement agencies to ensure they are meeting legislatively mandated training and department policies on use of force, firearms training, emergency vehicle operation, and pursuit driving training, and mandated departmental policies. On 3/18/25, March 18/25, a Post Board Standards Coordinator conducted a review at the Morrison County Sheriff's Office. After a comprehensive review of their records concerning mandated employee training and department policies, I am pleased to inform you that your police department passed the review. Ensuring all law enforcement agencies around the state are in compliance plays a pivotal role in maintaining the high level of professionalism we have enjoyed in Minnesota for many years. As a result, that professionalism translates into quality law enforcement services for the citizens of Minnesota. Please take a moment to recognize your police department, we'll call it Sheriff's Office, for this important accomplishment. Sincerely, Eric Missel, Executive Director. So just wanted to pass that note on. Great feedback from Post. Questions on there, gentlemen? And the second item is a notice from Sourcewell, and I'll just read one paragraph out of it. It's an excerpt. As part of our commitment to continuous improvement, it was determined that the Board of Directors would be able to operate and respond to needed changes more efficiently if the power to amend the bylaws was vested with the board. Please note, it is not uncommon for a Board of Directors of an organization such as Sourcewell to have the authority to amend the bylaws of the organization. So they're making a proposed amendment to their bylaws to allow the board that authority. And they're seeking input, if we have any. If you'd like to review the amended or the proposed changes by Sourcewell, I have a copy of what was sent to us, and I can provide that input from the board if you'd like. So I have that after the meeting. Questions on that one? Okay. And then my last item, Mr. Chair, and then if we want to do schedules, but I'll ask at the end of this meeting that we go into a closed session to discuss the purchase of a property.
Very good.
I'll read that resolution at that time.
Very good. We'll go to schedules then, huh, gentlemen? Is that all right with you? I'll go first. Dates.
March 30th through April 12th.
On the 31st is the food shelf drawings. Is that the same as the HHS raffle pull?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. On the 1st, we have a planning session, 8:30. We have a boardroom, a planning commission BOA meeting at 6 o'clock. On the 2nd is MOCO Day. The 3rd is MOCO Day. The 4th is Public Works Planning at Public Works. On the 4th. On the 8th, Board meeting. 9th, Department Head meeting. And that's all I got. Commissioner Blaine?
I cannot add anything.
Commissioner Casper?
I cannot add anything.
Commissioner Wincher?
Point is, you brought up the PC and Board of Adjustment, that's the Little Falls Township representative, so that's who's gonna be here
Yes.
at the Board of Adjustment.
Yep, you're right, yep.
Otherwise, you got me covered, thank you.
Commissioner Moran?
Friday, April 11th, the Safety Awards banquet being held out at Camp Ripley at the hangar. 5 o'clock it starts.
Yes. All right.
Thank you, I failed to mention.
Anything else, gentlemen? Hearing none, we're gonna go into a closed session.
If I can read the resolution, Mr.